We all go through disappointment, right? Whether it's a restaurant making your order wrong or bombing a test you thought you aced, we all know that sinking feeling in your chest. It's just part of the human experience. Well, I want you to think about how you reacted to it. Maybe it devastated you, or maybe you shrugged it off and kept going. I want to talk about my own disappointment today and how I reacted to it. That disappointment for me was a gradual 7-year deterioration of my mother due to concussion-induced brain trauma and early onset Alzheimer's. Growing up, my mother was a chemical engineer, and as my sister deviated towards art, we found a mutual bond over a love for science and excitement over going to science museums. And I could tell even as a kid that whenever my mom walked into a room, everyone listened to what she had to say. I could tell that everyone listened to what she had to say. So by the time I was in about 6th grade, I was used to my mom being gone most of the time for work. So I wasn't surprised when a family friend of ours came and picked me up from school. But she explained to me that my mother wasn't there to pick me up because she had had a concussion. And at that point, I'd never even seen my mom shed a tear, so I assumed she would just shrug it off and keep going. But it became clear eventually that the reason that she had had a concussion is she was having fainting spells due to lapses in pulse due to an irregular heartbeat. They gave her a pacemaker and she contracted infection from the pacemaker, and eventually she was standing at around 100 pounds at 5'7". So I didn't realize how much had changed until suddenly neighbors and family friends who I'd never seen before were showing up at my door saying how they knew exactly what I had gone through. As my mother's cognitive ability gradually decreased over the next few years and my father's need to work to compensate increased, I realized that my life was never going to be the same, but I wasn't exactly sure how. Well, this continued on for about a few years, and then 2 weeks before my freshman year of high school, my mom was involved in a really serious car accident, and almost, I think a few months after that car accident, she was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. So after this kind of double hit, she kind of went into free fall, and within a few years, my mother had gone from being a Harvard graduate to not knowing my own name. So once I got to high school after all this happening, I didn't feel motivated at all. I knew I wanted to get straight A's because that's what I felt like I was supposed to do and what my parents raised me to believe I was supposed to do. But I had no desire to actually achieve. I was in a few clubs because I was told they'd look good on college apps. I loved sports growing up and I was not doing any, and I wasn't even talking to that many people. Well, one day my aunt noticed my behavior and she came to my room and said that, frankly, you're never gonna get over this, you have to get on with it. This quote catalyzed my epiphany, an entire new way of life, because I realized I was trying to leave something in the past which had changed my entire future. If I kept waiting until I was ready to move on with my life, I was going to be in my room every Friday night for the rest of my life. So once I realized what I had to do, which was just get myself out there, I kind of went overboard. In my sophomore year, in fear of having a repeat freshman year, I decided to do everything to conquer my will to do nothing. So I doubled the course load, joined 2 sports, joined countless clubs. I don't even remember some of them, I feel bad. And basically just overwhelmed myself. And even though it was chaotic and I don't recommend doing that much, it was eye-opening because even though my schedule was increasing, I was somehow doing better in all the activities. And I wasn't necessarily returning to my old self, but I was getting to know a new version of myself, and so was my mother. We both knew that nothing was ever going to be the same, but we were coming to terms with that together. My junior year, I had a few brief relapses into how I was freshman year because of the stress of AP, SAT, ACT, and a million other acronyms that College Board seems to love to torture us with. But this year was also incredibly eye-opening because I continued to push myself, and somehow it was still making me happier, even though on the surface I felt more stressed out. I was finding not just interests such as running that my parents had encouraged me to do growing up, but interests on my own, such as fashion blogs that didn't really have anything to do with what I wanted to pursue, and that was okay. But the biggest takeaway from my junior year was my discovery of a deep interest and love for cognitive and neuroscience. I began researching studies and famous scientists and their findings and how I could apply them to my own life to continue convincing myself to do what I've been doing. Just to give you one example, I started researching PET scans, which show activity where the colors are brighter and lower brain activity where the colors are darker. And one study I found was the positive effects of just taking a 20-minute walk before an exam. Now, I knew that when I started track and I started running in the mornings, I knew I was feeling better, but I didn't really understand why. I just knew that my mom told me that it'll just make you feel better. Well, after looking into it, I realized that just short segments of physical activity have positive repercussions, not only on your body, but also on your mind and often social life. So just one-click glimpse into this world of neuroscience had convinced me to continue with the sport that I had only started recently. So the problem facing our society, and the reason I wanted to do this talk, is that it's extremely easy to fall into this period in between trauma or just disappointment and self-fulfillment. I can admit myself that I usually wait until the next Monday morning or physics test is over to let myself hang out with my friends or really have fun. And the problem is that this isn't an isolated trend that's confined to my house or my community. It really surpasses all borders. This idea of waiting until the next hurdle is over to really find yourself is a dangerous idea. It's one thing to look forward to a day, but it's another to view the time in between now and this day you're looking forward to as almost purgatory, when really it's not time to be wasted. It makes up the majority of your life. My disappointment has taught me that it's possible to balance an overwhelming schedule or even an overwhelming life with time to actually live life itself. And I'm by no means a model for the route to happiness. I still have a long way to go, and I know that I'm still a work in progress, but I know that if I keep doing what I'm doing now, which is constantly putting myself out of my comfort zone, just continuously pushing myself more than I want to, then I'll continue to progress. If you only view obstacles as just that, that's all they'll ever be. It's just impediments to success. If you can train yourself to view them as windows for opportunity for reinvention and achievement, then your life will start to feel like the weekend that you've been scheduling your happiness towards 7 days a week. I understand that there are high expectations and it seems impossible, but this training of your mind to see obstacles as opportunities is possible. It can be confusing and even exhausting, but it is possible. If I can help people realize what they can do to not just find relief, but true success and lasting happiness by employing this method, or just getting themselves out of their comfort zone, let's say once a week, then maybe I'll be able to call myself a success story. If there's one thing that I can leave you with, it's that in the long run, you're your own catalyst for success, for disappointment, or for everlasting happiness. You're the architect, so why not create something great, even if it means starting from the ground up? Make sure that when you leave today, you make time to live rather than just exist.